ingredients for uszkas, and this is kind of a typical proportion. You may, if you want to do it less, just cut it in half, type of it, approximately. But we use Polish dried mushrooms. In Polish, they're called podgrzybki. I go and buy these mushroom in Polish deli. In English, they are translated into dried bay bolete. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but it's dried B-A-Y-B-O-L-E-T-E. This is the translation. But a lot of Polish friends told me you can also substitute this dried mushroom with dried mushroom that they sell in Belmont. So you can also try it with that. And the amount is about 2.4 ounces, which is 70 grams. We use metric system in Poland, so it's 2.4 ounces or 70 grams. And so that these are the mushrooms, 2 onions, and I would say about 4 tablespoons of breadcrumbs. And salt and pepper. This will be for your taste. So what you do first, you rinse these dried mushrooms, and then you put them into boiling water and boil them for about 5 minutes. So after you rinse these mushrooms, you put them into a boiling water and boil them approximately for 5 minutes. And the idea is that they are very kind of tough and dry, so you need to make them really, really soft, and they will soften in this boiling water. Okay, so now we are going to chop the onions, and because we are making the filling, the first step in making uszkas, we are making the filling that will go inside the uszkas. Uszkas are very similar to pierogis, just have a little bit different filling, and they're a little bit smaller, and they have a little bit different shape.
And they're very holiday themed.
Yes. So you try to chop the onion in a very small pieces. So we'll do that. So we're chopping the onion. I'm about to start frying. And pretty soon we are also going to chop the dried mushrooms that are already soft. I drained them. And, you know, in the old days when I was making these with my mom or my grandma, we had to chop the mushrooms as well by hand, but they were a little bit more tricky.
Now we're using a food processor.
So now for mushrooms we are doing using the food. We're cutting the onions, and the onions should have a kind of like a golden color. And at the same time, because I didn't start the.
Oh, is that why it was so hard?
Yes.
Really? You're so mean. You told me to butter the pan.
Yeah. I'm not such a professional, Veronica. We'll start frying now. Okay. We can move on to the mushrooms. Okay. So, Veronica, if you want to show the mushrooms from this side, they're already nice and soft, like this. So you're putting them in the Cuisinart, and I don't put too much, because if you put too many, it's hard. They get stuck, kind of. So we'll put about this amount, and then I start with low. Then I alternate it high. Then I kind of check it. And Veronica, I can show a little bit. Then I kind of push it down. I kind of check it out, what happened here. They look pretty good.
It looks like food.
Veronica, don't give any weird descriptions. But look pretty good. So you don't really have to spend a lot of time, okay? You saw how little time it took actually for them to stop. And when I had to do it by hand with a knife, it took much longer. So we'll put them. So now we can take a little break and wait for the onion to get in a better shapes.
Yes.
Okay, so as you can see, the onion has a nice golden color. The brown color. Okay, so now that you have this beautiful golden color of the onion, the mushrooms that is nicely chopped goes right in here. And then the little madness starts because you kind of have to do this and then you have to do the rest of the mushrooms fairly fast. Okay. So we're doing the mushrooms again. Dropping some. And actually, this is a good, see, this has to go on the bottom. Okay, so it happens when you're in a rush. Sometimes you can make mistakes. Okay.
Oh my gosh, Mom, your onions are burning.
I know. So then, you have, okay. So after all our little drama with pulling mushrooms, you do it again. Just like I did it previously. A little bit low, a little bit on low, a little bit on the high, and voila, it looks pretty good. So you keep adding this to this pan with onions and mushrooms, and it should be moist. So when you feel that it starts kind of getting dry, you may want to add a little bit of butter, okay, and stir. Okay, so after the last thing we showed you was the finished filling with dried mushrooms and fried onions, and then I transferred it to this plastic container. And what we are going to do now, we're going to create these little balls and have them ready on this plate. So this is my own little way of doing it. I learned it from my friend, like I mentioned before, and it's actually very useful because when you make uszkas, then you can just place it easily and start making uszkas instead of struggling with the stuffing. I mean, with the filling. So it's kind of gooey. It's kind of like has this Play-Doh like almost consistency. So it's fun to make it because it sticks. Okay, it's not too dry. So that's basically idea. You make a particular size of it, kind of like this.
Like 1 inch tall.
Yeah. All right, so now we're moving on to the most important and probably the most difficult part of making uszkas. Making the dough. And this dough can be used for pierogis and uszkas. It's the same dough. And what I do first, I spread a little bit of flour on this board. And this I went with very simple one. It's my mom's recipe, and it has to start for a small proportion, fairly medium amount of pierogis or uszkas. Can always make it more eventually, but if you want to make more, if you make big amounts, but 2 cups of flour and 1 cup of water. So it's only flour and water. Okay, so we start, we make kind of like this mountain made out of flour. Okay, and the important thing is that which I didn't realize when I was making this dough that first time, that, or maybe science teachers have a better knowledge of this, but I didn't. That if you would just like pour water over the flour, it would be like all over and it would go basically roll down the flour and it would end up all over the place. So that's kind of what I did when I was making the dough the first time. So what you do, you make kind of like this little hole. It's like a little volcano. And you want to trap the water at first while you're mixing it with the flour. Okay, so this is kind of like what I do. I actually like to do it with my left hand. So this is totally old school. Okay, this is the old school. This is how I make my dough. I don't like to do it any other way. I know there are all these new machines, but for some reason I just like it this way. This is how I eventually learned when my mom came and visited me in America. So it was just easier to see how somebody is making it. And she used to make these pierogies at least once a week, so she could make big amounts. If you would wake her up in the middle of the night and tell her, I want some pierogies, she would start making it for you, because she, you know, was making it so often that it just seemed so easy when she was making it. But it's not that easy when you're just making it the first time or the first few times. So the idea is that this dough at first is very kind of loose, right? And I'm mixing it and I make sure the water stays trapped in this mixture, right? So I pour a little bit and I mix a little bit to make it more dense, and then I add more water again. And I like to use a knife to mix it at the beginning of the process. And eventually what you'll make these kind of like dough pieces. You have to start rolling it, which I will show you how. And you'll have to keep adding flour to it to get the consistency that you really want. And the consistency is that you will have to be able to roll it out without sticking it to the board. But it also can be too dry, because then when you'll be making uszkas or pierogis, they won't stick. And whatever filling you put in, they may basically get, I would say, the filling will come out while you're boiling them, so they'll be completely destroyed. So I used all my water, right? So this was 2 cups of flour and 1 cup of water. And now I'm kind of trying to create this kind of like a bowl. And now I'm adding all this extra flour that was on the edges, right? I am creating this one big mass, okay? And it's getting more thicker. So see what's happening with this? This is becoming like this form, but I am gradually putting more flour to make it not too sticky. Okay, it's kind of like almost like a dough at this, like a Play-Doh. Yeah, this is the name. This is
Can I touch
the
it?
name. You can touch it. You can stick your finger in it. All right, so kneading.
Kneading.
So I'm kneading. Yeah, kneading. And first, you know, as you could see, I'm kind of, you have to find your own little groove of how you want to do it, but I like to do it with my fingers and knuckles. This is pretty good. It's not perfect yet, but it's good enough. what I like to do at this point, I like to separate it into kind of two pieces because it will be easier for me to roll it out. But you see inside it's more raw, so I still put a little bit of flour and kind of make it like a little ball out of this, and this one will be waiting for later, and this one is the one that we'll start working on right now. So, you know, I developed my own little routine and a way how I'm doing it. So I'm using this board to create these two balls, and then I move on to this other board, just a regular flat board. That's where I'm going to be rolling the dough, okay? And I also had my favorite glass, because it is also an old school way of doing it, that I was using for that, but this glass broke after all these years, and I couldn't find the one with the exact size, because I'm using the glass, I'm using this glass for the first time, okay? So my old glass was a little bit bigger and I couldn't find it, so I have this one. I also have this one that I may use, but this one is a little too big, okay? So my old glass was somewhere in between those two. Uszkas are smaller, so I'm going to experiment with this today, okay? But again, so the flour is here. This one we're going to take, and now you are going to roll it.
With the rolling pin.
With the
so
rolling
make sure
pin,
you have one
yes.
of those.
Yes. So another thing is you need to have a rolling pin, and you roll it. And the thing is, if the dough gets stuck, you just put a little bit of flour on it, okay? And the dough, and again, a lot of these things, it's a matter of preferences, like with any other food. I like my dough fairly thin, so the pierogis or uszkas will be very delicate. I think we're pretty good. And now what we'll do, we take the glass and we basically, see, make little shapes like this.
Like
I'm
cookie
not,
cutters.
yes. I hope this will be good enough, even though it's a little small, but I'm going to go for it this time. Actually, I'm going to make one with this one, and then I'll assess which one I like it better. This one is, I think, a little too big, but we'll see. This will be probably better for pierogis, because pierogis have more stuffing, and it depends really what you fill them with. But especially with like a sauerkraut, which are also the pierogis with sauerkraut, basically, for you who are interested in pierogis, which I know a lot of you are. So basically, this filling that I made for uszkas, the only difference is that you add sauerkraut to this, and then this is the filling for traditional, also considered traditional Christmas pierogis, which are basically stuffed with this stuffing, fried onions with dried mushrooms and sauerkraut. So this is the variation. So uszkas and pierogis for Christmas are very similar, but different, you know, because here you don't have sauerkraut. I don't even know how many I'm making, but
Okay, stop.
yes, you can stop for now. Yes. Okay, so now, as you could see, dun dun dun, as you could see, I cut out all these circles. You keep these little pieces because then you can use them again for a few extra ones. But see, so you take one of these circles now, and now you have these awesome balls that we prepared before, like I showed you. So like I said, usually this was a little bit bigger, so I'm going to see if it's going to work nicely. But you're going to take one of these balls and Not easy because I'm used to, these supposed to be a little bit smaller if I use this shape. So I'm going to be a little bit more creative. But you put this in and you kind of make a shape like this. And then you also should have a little bit of flour handy. I can just put it here because then you start kind of gluing them. And that's, you first just kind of stick these edges, okay? And when they don't stick that much, you can always use the flour. So I do it once, then I go over and I do it again because it's important to make sure that there are no holes, because if there are, when they will be boiling, they can open up and all the stuffing will go all over. So you don't want this. And then after you do this, some people leave shape like this. I kind of like it, make it even more sure that they don't open. And this was my grandmother's kind of little pattern. So you take your thumb under and this index finger above, and you kind of do this. I don't know if it's...
I love doing that.
See, and I also like this shape better. So this is actually the pierogies, one pierog. This is, if you would be making pierogies, this would be it. This would be already a one pierog. But we're making uszkas, and uszkas have a little bit different shape. You take these endings and you kind of bring them here and glue them together, and voila! This is the first uszko. Okay, so I will have to be a little bit more creative because this is a little small for that. Okay.
Next time, just make the balls smaller.
Yeah, the next balls that we'll make, because we still have more filling, we'll make them smaller. But you know, it's an adjustment. So again, you do it like this, okay, and then you do it like that, and this adds this extra kind of layer of making sure that it's connected well. And then you do it like this. Here's another one. I will make a few, and then we'll be busy making those. And then I'll show you what's next, because then they have to be boiled. So here are our ready uszkas, ready to be boiled. Okay, so this is kind of like, it's a little bit over 20, I think around 20. So, and now we have a big pot full of boiling water. I'm going to add a little bit of oil because it will help with enough to stick. And then the important thing is you're putting them on the boiling water, because they, and careful, very careful, because
Can I do one?
Huh? You want to put one? Yeah, put one.
No, I want to do one. Let's do this one.
Because, yeah, you put them very gentle because you don't want them to fall apart. And
Or splash water on you.
so, like I said, it's important to put them on the boiling water. Don't put them like while the water is not fully boiling yet. Because they actually boil fast. Okay, so you put them in, and then at first they're kind of on the bottom of the pot. Okay, and you give it a gentle stir. Okay, and then really after about 3 minutes, you will see that they begin to raise to the surface. And when they do, it means they're kind of done. Okay, so it doesn't take long for them to boil and be ready. I gave them a little stir. Okay, and I'm just going to wait a little bit. This is boiling very hard, so I lowered the heat.
Okay.
One more minute, and we'll be ready to drain them. And when we'll drain them, what do? we spray them with cold water. That kind of, we used to say in Polish, that kind of helps them harden. So see, we were lucky. None of them fell apart. They're all in one pieces. They look pretty good. I think they're ready. So I turn it off. Then I go to the sink. And again, I gently put them in the colander. Yeah, and again, you need to do this gently because at this step, they can also fall apart. So, look how beautiful. I'm getting excited. This reminds me of my native home. So, this is cold water. I'm spraying them. Okay.
Come on.
This is how they look like after they're done, okay? And I'm going to have one momentarily to enjoy it. So you can have it like this, but they are traditionally served with a hot, kind of like a spicy red borscht, and they are delicious in it. But of course, it's a matter of preferences. There are some people that could care less for uszkas and borscht, but these are my favorite. This is my favorite dish for Christmas, and this is a traditional dish. So voila, and we'll show you what goes with it, which is borscht, with the next video. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you'll give it a shot and maybe try to make them one day, maybe even one Christmas. And we serve it Christmas Eve, because in Poland, Christmas Eve is actually the biggest celebration of Christmas. This is when we have big gatherings, we eat all this traditional food, and this is it, because we're at 95% Catholic, so we celebrate Christmas Eve big time. So enjoy, and see you next time.
So obviously, as you can see, the cupcakes are out of the oven and ready for decorating. This will be the most important part of the cupcakes, because you can do any old cupcakes